Hi table tennis junkies. Do you have a friend who you just can't beat at ping pong? If you're an amateur player and you're trying to beat your friends at the office or the guys in the neighborhood, I've compiled my top 5 tips to help jumpstart your game and to help beat or become the ping pong king of the neighborhood. Let's get started. Sometimes I get asked, what's the number one tip that you can give me to help become a better ping pong player? The first thing I always tell people is get better at your serves. I have lots of serving videos on my channel that you can watch that'll help you improve your game. They don't have to be super complicated, but there are a few things that you just should always be able to do with your serves. And the first is location. Being able to serve to different locations will help you because it'll help expose your opponent's weaknesses and help you to exploit them. Number 2 thing is spin. Having a variation of spin, whether it's a little bit of spin or maybe just no spin or a lot of spin, just that variation will help win you points. And sometimes your opponent doesn't know how to return like a backspin, and so having a backspin serve will help you win some easy points. And the number 3 thing is pace. Serving at different speeds will help. A lot of times when I'm at the office or playing somebody in the neighborhood, they only just serve fast. Every single time they'll just serve fast, 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 and it's very predictable and easy to return. Sometimes serving slow and then fast, having that difference in pace will help your game and win you points. My number 2 tip for helping improve your game is to be consistent and don't swing too hard on the ball. This is a really common mistake at all levels of table tennis. Just remember that the harder you swing, the more erratic your shots are going to become. Oftentimes, the better placed ball will be more effective than the harder hit ball. Let your opponent make the mistake. This is a tough lesson for a lot of people to learn, but just remember, you don't always have to go so hard. You can place the ball and it can be just as effective. Tip number 3, hit the subscribe button. I post a lot of really good tips on this channel and it'll help you beat your friends. Tip number 4, figure out what your opponent likes to hit, either forehand or backhand. Everybody has a weakness, and I like to try to find it in the warm-up before the game even starts. It's important to identify what your opponent likes to hit, that way you can strategize against it. This is really important. For most non-professional table tennis players, their forehand is the weaker side. I'd estimate this is true for about 90% of players, so if you're looking for a weakness, I recommend starting on the forehand. Tip number 5, put some spin on the ball. A little bit of spin will go a long way in beating your friends at ping pong. There are lots of different spins and ways of generating spin. Top spin is probably the most common and easiest to put on the ball, but it's also the easiest for your opponent to return. Backspin is another good one. This one is a lot tougher for your opponent to return. A lot of times it'll go in the net, but if your opponent does return it, you want to be careful on the return. So if you put backspin on the ball and your opponent returns it, a lot of times that return will have backspin. So you'll either need to stay under the ball or generate enough power or lift to get the ball over the table with topspin. My last tip is a bonus tip, and it's get a good racket, or at least a decent racket. If you're new to ping pong and you're trying to improve and you don't have a racket yet, or maybe you have a racket that came with the table you bought, I really recommend ditching those and buying something new. A good racket goes a lot further than most people realize in helping their serves and their spins and the rest of their game. Having a quality racket will also help with consistency, with power, and with spin. You don't need to go overboard when you're buying your first racket. You can buy a pretty decent starter racket for around 40 or 50 bucks, and I have several in the video description that I recommend that you can just buy right off of Amazon. What I don't recommend is going to Walmart or your local sporting goods store and buying a racket from there, because a lot of times those rackets are just kind of junk and you don't really know what you're getting, and the quality control just isn't there. A lot of times the grip, you won't have any grip on the rubber, or the wood will be really soft and they'll snap, or they'll be really soft. So if you hit the ball in the middle, it'll bounce differently than if you hit it out here, or out here, or up here. So a lot of times if you just don't know what you're getting, you're going to get something that you don't really want. These are a few rackets that I picked up from work that haven't really been there for that long, but you can just kind of see that they've just fallen apart. Like this one is just like there's not really anything going on. The rubber's coming off, and this one, the rubber actually has come all the way off and there's absolutely no grip. These are the sponge paddles, but if you could feel it, you can't really see it in the video, but there's no grip whatsoever. So if there's no friction on the rubber, then there's no way to generate spin on the ball, because the ball actually has to grab onto the rubber to generate spin. So these are just completely smooth. They probably started out kind of tacky, but they're not that way anymore. This one's the same thing. It's just kind of coming apart, and there's just no grip, and they're crappy. A lot of them actually had already snapped. I should have probably grabbed one, but they'll break right in here because they're just such bad quality. That's all for this week's video. Don't forget to give me that dopamine hit by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. If you have any questions at all, put them in the comments and I will get back to you, and I'll see you next week. Thanks.